What's up? What's up? All right, what is up, everybody? I'm sorry I have a little small technical problem. All right. Well, I tell you what, man. What a weekend. I'm going to turn this down just a little bit. All right, what a weekend, man. I just came back Sunday from the Pasadena Fishing Expo. Got to see a lot of people. Actually, we're just watching a stream from Grant and Anastasia. They were just doing a live stream. I'm sorry as I'm distracted for just 1 second. Make sure that I'm up there. All right, I'm trying to. There we go. I just got one video that I want to bring in for everybody to see. It's very important to this stream. But all I know is that Fishing Expo was a really good. It's been going on for like 30. It's been going on for like 30 years. The whole reason for this, we have Zach. Oh, there we go. All right, I'm just looking for a video, and we're going to pause that. Bring that video up. All right, sorry. The stream didn't go exactly the way I was at the beginning. All right, we're going to go ahead and turn that off. All right, now we go up there. All right, now I feel a little better. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm just sitting here kind of just figuring, had a little bit of technical difficulties. All right, so the whole reason for this stream is that we had a couple of guys that I talked with last year, Noah and Zach, and they did a, because it's one of them things here in Maryland where everybody hates snake. You know, you got the love-hate with the snakeheads, and nobody's really talking about blue cats. And I'm really after seeing some of the things I've seen in the last couple months since we've talked the last time, it's evident to me as personally seeing is the impact that I believe that the I'll try to get to everybody's saying, "Hey, Anastasia, how you doing?" The impact that I think of blue cats are doing. As much as I am a bass guy and maybe not so much of a snakehead guy, but like I said, for me, it never matters. All right, and I could tell you, I had this joke prepared the whole time because I thought it was really funny because we had a medical scare here last week. We almost had to call the paramedics. Look, even my wife's looking. My wife just fainted, almost hit the table because I bought her flowers for Valentine's Day. Yeah, that was pretty crazy. But I'm just going to bring everybody up. But I had a great time at the Pasadena show. I got to talk to Letty Rudall. We definitely have some people in here. We got 38 people in here right now. All right, so let's bring everybody up. There's David, my man. There's Kambouris Trout. There is Noah. And there is Zach. All right. David Confair. If you are on the Eastern Shore, if you're not from the Eastern Shore, that is cornflower. That he is a well-known commercial waterman down here on the Eastern Shore. All summer long, he's a blue crabber. But in the wintertime, he is a rod and reel commercial fisherman. And he does a lot. I mean, it's basically blue cats. Even though the yellow perch are starting to run really good right now, he is definitely a blue cat fisherman. And he's got the commercial side of it. Him and Noah just came out with a video that was really good that I liked about the blue cats and a lot of things, man. It's so much political stuff that it's really starting to get stupid. Noah and Zach are the biologists. Noah is you're a teacher. I'll tell you what, I got a better idea. Why don't you go ahead and we'll go with Noah first. Why don't you go ahead and explain to everybody exactly what you do?
All right, howdy. I'm a professor of physiology at Salisbury University. I teach the fish biology course, vertebrate biology, and some other biology courses. But what my lab does is, Zach is a graduate student in my lab. We research various aspects of fish biology. Some projects are looking at like snakehead, how they can move around over land and their adaptations help them do so. Some other projects are looking at blue catfish and what they're eating, how fast they're reproducing, how fast they're growing, and some other projects too. I do some odd stuff like other amphibious fish, studying why other fish go onto land, how they move around on land, and where they go on land. So that's a little bit of the broad stuff my lab's doing.
And then you got Zach. Zach is, I think you're in California right now, aren't you?
Yeah. So I just moved out to California. I'm a grad student in Noah's lab, and I'm in my last semester, and I'll actually be starting a new job as a fisheries biologist out here in California. So just got through with the big move. Don't have much furniture in here, but it's all good. I made it out here.
I guess the big thing for you is that down here we're trying to save the rockfish, and where you're going, they're trying to get rid of the rockfish, right?
yeah, totally different outlook on striped bass, whether you're on West Coast or East Coast. But yeah, that's always kind of interested me, the idea of invasive fish. I've got a background in research and management of warm water as well as cold water, freshwater fish, and a little bit of marine stuff. So I've kind of done a little bit of everything in the fisheries world, but I'm excited to get my kind of career started out here and research finished up with blue catfish.
And then we got, can I call you the most famous name you know by there, Stephen Kambouris? Snakehead Jesus. Let me tell you what, if you are here and it's first time you're in Maryland and you want to learn how to catch snakeheads from everything from tips, it doesn't really matter. You go to him. He's a YouTuber like I am because what are we, spot burning know-it-alls? Is that what we always say? Spot burning. Cornflower, he has a YouTube channel too. But Stephen Kambouris is in the fishery industry himself. So why don't you get and explain to everybody what you do there, bud?
Yeah, actually, so I mean, you got the channel, Cambo Trout Fishing. So some of what I do on there in the past and like to do in the future has been kind of interviews with fisheries biologists about the latest science that's out there. Because I mean, that's something that I know that Noah's getting really into this, which I think is fantastic. It's just something called science communication, and that's where we're trying to connect the science with the fishermen. And I think that's just super, super important, because that's the way we can get to like a much better management, paradigm out there for all these fisheries. But me personally, I haven't told you yet, Sam. I actually recently departed the American Fisheries Society. And
really?
I loved working there. It was, an absolute pleasure. I wish I could have stayed forever, but opportunities arose elsewhere that are very beneficial to my family. So I now have a new job, which is completely different than the old one I had, but I still try to keep up to date with the latest science that is that's interesting. I'll talk to you about that maybe off unless you want to tell everybody what you're doing. Sounds good.
So I'm just going to show this video real quick. In case my computer kind of wants to blank out again. All right, this was taken from the Patuxent River. Oh, wait, hold on 1 second. Let me go back here real quick. All right, this was taken from the Patuxent River, and if anybody wants to see, this is very. I think I'm gonna mute that. That's insane, isn't it?
Crazy.
That right there. All right, that right there is a absolute biomass of blue catfish that will eat everything in its path. That's all they're doing is feeding. And so when we sit here and we talk about, now this is just my opinion. I'm kind of going to sit back and let you guys talk about your thing, but to me, this is important that, I hear everything about snakeheads. And even though, you guys call me I'm a bass fisherman and damn bass fisherman. But the thing to me is snakeheads don't get like this. Snakeheads aren't scoring up in, I mean, what is that? Could that be a couple hundred? Could that be maybe a couple hundred blue cats? Maybe 1,000? I mean, that's like something pretty goddamn ridiculous, I think.
About 10,000.
And you've seen them, and I've seen them, Dave. I know I've seen them 6 foot thick, 100 yards, and I know you've said you've seen them almost 30 foot thick, deep, stacked on top of each other.
2 or 3 miles. Yeah, I've seen so thick on the depth finder. If it was white perch that we were netting, and they showed up that thick, you'd never haul them all. It'd be hundreds and thousands of pounds. I mean, in one school. So, I mean, it's, if you think about it, if just the amount of fish that one school can eat in the course of a day is astounding.
And they'll eat bass, so don't blame all the snakeheads. And I'm sorry if, you know, I don't care what people think. If you don't like my opinion, then you can just click the hell right off. All right, so Zach and Noah, you guys have been on the Nanticoke River and the Marshy Hope, and you guys have been doing research. Can you kind of just talk about what you guys have come up with, what you guys have seen, to kind of get an idea of what you see between both of them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so our study, the way it was kind of designed and set up, was to look at blue catfish diet, and we wanted to do so across different seasons throughout the entire year. So what we did is from November of last year to basically November of this year, went out and collected blue catfish with Maryland DNR, and we sampled at a bunch of different locations throughout the river at each event, and we did that monthly. Went out there and collected fish with boat electrofishing, and we also kind of teamed up and paired up with some tournaments and collected some fish that way, as well as used some trot lines. Cornflower helped us out a little bit, catch some fish, and basically any way we can, just get a bunch of fish from all across the water throughout the entire year to examine diet composition. So that's kind of what my research has been geared towards, and I'm finally kind of getting to where I start to have some preliminary results starting to pop up here. So I'm excited to kind of get this everything analyzed and be able to share that with you guys, and hopefully with the more general public in terms of publishing my research here in the next few months or so. Maybe a year, I don't know, a little more than that.
And I want to thank Steve. I was talking to Steven and Eddie Weber. Eddie Weber is on the cover of Fish Talk magazine this month. Wow, that's actually pretty awesome, man. That's cool, Eddie. And but he was going to donate some stuff to give away, and I said no, not this time. I really wanted people to come on the stream to really be interested in what we're talking about, and it's not for some free stuff. Just this time. Next time, I think I'm going to ask around like that. I wanted a sponsor for this video, but I gave all that up because I just wanted it to be about this. So Noah, what if you can go ahead? You got to start talking. And if anybody's got any questions, that's why these guys are here. These guys are here to ask any of your questions when it comes to snakeheads. Even if you want to talk a little bit fishing techniques or anything, because it's been pretty warm. It's going to be 70 degrees Thursday. So it's going to be pretty
over here. Yeah. So I think you touched on this a little bit before, but everybody's talking about, or a lot more people are talking about snakeheads and their impacts, and they're like, "Oh, snakeheads are evil monster fish," but nobody's really saying about catfish. Even though blue catfish are also an invasive species, and then in some tributaries of the Chesapeake Bay, they make up about 70% of the biomass. And what that means is, if you were to take all the life out of the water, including plankton and plants, and weigh it, up to 70% of that is catfish, depending on where you're at in the Chesapeake Bay, which is an astonishing amount of fish. And if there's that much fish, they have to eat things, and so anything they eat is likely going to have a negative impact. But a lot of people aren't talking about catfish as much as snakeheads, because 20 years ago when snakeheads were introduced, these were the alien fish. These were a foreign fish coming from China with these big teeth that look like anything different. They look different anything around here. And there's some anecdotal evidence that they can come onto land, and people were terrified of that and didn't help. There were 5 terrible snakehead horror movies the next year came out of them coming onto land and eating people. So people were generally feared that these giant toothy things are going to come onto land and eat your puppies and babies, and it was something very different and scary. Whereas catfish are American. Catfish are classically American.
Thursday.
Kind of catfish there. And you got over here, we also had channel catfish for a while. And in creeks, people may get like, oh, I got a bullhead catfish. It's a catfish. It's a different catfish, but catfish isn't a scary foreign concept, where snakehead is something dramatically different. So I think the snakehead immediately got a lot of that negative press and feared a lot of people riled up and afraid. Whereas the catfish were kind of just trickled in. They weren't really a surprise in the bay. It's like, oh, it's just another catfish. Oh, well. But we're seeing it's not just like the channel catfish or the native bullheads or the white catfish. These are getting a lot bigger, a lot more numerous, and they're eating a lot more things. And all of that is problematic. And we got to talk about that more. And yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if catfish, I mean, when it comes to pollution, we could talk about pollution, because I know I was just out on an oyster boat last week, and I know there's political stuff with that, because watching your video with Dave was explaining how they're really kind of pushing the farming catfish instead of actually having the guys catching the wild catfish for like consumption to sell and everything. Dave, why don't you go ahead and talk about that, because I think that's a big deal. I mean, if you could actually sell you can actually sell some bluefish, there'd probably be more people out there maybe getting a commercial license to go out and, sell these catfish to like restaurants and stuff like that.
I think one of the problems is we actually don't have enough of the places in Maryland to process the blue cats. The numbers that can be caught can't be handled by just one processing plant. Therefore, they have nothing to do with all the extra catfish, and it kills the price. I mean, even right now, I think the price is all the way down to 35 or 40 cents a pound right now. You can't work for that. It don't even pay for you. That's it. One of the main problems is the price ain't high enough for anybody to mess with them. And the catfish are so destructive on your equipment. If you use nets, even with fight nets, the bigger 50 and 60 pounders blow right through your fight nets like that ain't nothing. They're just. I was trying to think the most easy and efficient way to catch them, and all I can think of is a trawl of some kind. They destroy nets. You can't get them out of your nets. Catfish pots are efficient, but they don't catch the big ones. They only catch smaller ones. Hook and line is an okay way. Trout lining it's efficient, but when you get 30 or 40 of them fish on one trout line, it's done. It don't catch no more. And they'll leave a trout line sit for 24 to 48 hours. To leave a trout line sit overnight, you're going to lose half your fish. They're going to work their way off the hooks. So it's a real tough call here how to catch these fish and how to get rid of them. I was even talking to Noah before about electric shocking commercially. But
yeah,
again,
that's what I asked him.
While the water's warm. So it's
I said the same thing. But he goes, "There's not enough room in the boats."
Yeah.
There's not enough room in the boats, because you can actually get so many. You see what we just seen on the video.
Shot, yeah. I mean, but
I was watching the video. Of a commercial cat fisherman. I think it's blue cats in Louisiana this week, and they use them hoop nets, and you see them tying them back up, but they're catching like 6,000 pounds of catfish. Down there. I mean, here I can't see where that would be any problem whatsoever.
Oh no. There's wholesalers over the Potomac that have had close to 300,000 pounds in one swipe. I mean, it's not a problem catching loads of them. It's a problem getting rid of loads of them. There's not enough places to process them or even to handle them. And then
See,
once you get on the market, nobody wants them. It drives the price down. You know, it's
yeah,
almost. I even actually had one guy, farmer, was asking me about using them for fertilizer because the price of fertilizer was getting so high. He was wondering about catching large numbers of them and putting them on the field, but I think that'd be quite hazardous farm equipment. They'd pop some tires
yeah, I think that Harris
with
Teeter
their
blue cats.
spines and stuff.
I bet you 5 to 1 or 10 to 1
Fucked up.
that's all farm raised catfish that they're bringing up there.
Yeah, to answer Adam's question on where is it, on how is processing blues different from processing other types of catfish? The issue is it's not different than processing other types of catfish. What it is different is most catfish in the U.S. is farmed, and or in most other parts of the country, like in Louisiana and stuff like that, Mississippi, it's farmed catfish, and because it's farmed, then it has to go under a USDA inspection process by the Department of Agriculture because it's agriculture. It also has to go FDA inspection because it's food. However, the catfish farms in the South have been lobbying to that all catfish in the U.S. need to undergo USDA and FDA inspection, even if it's wild caught. So wild caught catfish out of the Chesapeake Bay needs the U.S. Department of Agriculture inspection, even though it's already getting the FDA inspection to make sure it's safe. And there's not many inspectors and that are trained to look at fish processing plants for blue catfish. And so it's hard and a lengthy process to get a fish processing facility inspected, and you may have to wait a couple of years for anybody to be able to do anything with that. And so most people don't want to sit on a new plant they built for a few years and do nothing with it, and so they don't go into that. However, I'm working with some local politicians around the Chesapeake Bay and legislators to try to get rid of that USDA inspection for wild caught fish, because no other fish in the Chesapeake Bay has them. It's just those catfish lobbyists trying to make it harder for wild caught catfish to get into the game to protect their own interests, being their own farm catfish.
Yeah, because we're running. You know, I know we're not getting into the snakeheads yet, Steve, but I could tell you we're running through the same thing. I'm getting ready to do a video on Oyster and some of the political stuff in there, where I think finally the governor answered some of these guys, but so what to me, what I'm hearing and what it seems to me is that that Maryland wants you to go out and spend tens of thousands of dollars, and they're going to give you a little spot on the bay, and you're going to go ahead and you're going to farm your oysters, or you're going to farm the catfish, or whatever it is, and they want to make sure they regulate you. They want to make sure they get you, make you pay that. And I don't know, it's just, you got guys who've been doing this for generations. Dave, you've been doing this for a long time. That I think you guys have been doing it long enough that you can kind of know how to keep everything sustainable when it comes to crabs or oysters or anything like that. If they just freaking leave you alone, I think. All right, I'll tell you what. So since we've been talking about blue cats, we got to make sure we got my buddy coming here. Stephen, I have seen that this year in 2022, you had a pretty banner year catching snakeheads.
Yeah, it's 2022 was kind of an odd year on the snakehead side of things. There were some days I went out and I would, kind of say that I had less catches than I would expect. But I also had probably arguably the best year or best single chip of my life. And that was the day, I call it, I don't know how many snakehead, but it was a 5-fish stringer during a tournament where the average size snakehead was, I think, about 32 inches, just an insane day. And that same day, I caught one that was like 35.5 inches and somewhere between 18, 19 pounds. Massive fish. But it was it was a funny thing. Like that day was kind of special because I was like one of the only ones in the water because it had a light rain to it, so nobody wanted to come out. It was fry ball season, so a lot of those fish I was getting off fry balls. It's a great way to get big snakehead. So there's some caveats there, but before we get too deep into snakehead, I wanted to ask Noah a question. Noah, the work that you're doing, trying to work on, which is essentially lobbying to get these changes made to, I guess kind of reduce the barriers to entry to the market so that we can, get towards higher commercial harvests and easier commercial harvest of these blue cats. From our end, is there anything that we can do? Is this an instance where we should have a petition or contact legislators? What can we do to try to kind of help that process?
Absolutely. You can contact your local legislator, particularly if you're in around Chesapeake Bay. But even if you're not, you can still contact your local congressman and say you're interested in getting rid of because this is a federal law that's impacting these local watermen like Dave and the processors. And so you can contact your congressman and say, the blue catfish in the Chesapeake Bay is a problem, and we need to reduce barriers for commercial harvest to reduce their numbers and reduce their negative impact. And so that's something you can do, and just say you're in favor of reducing the USDA regulations. They're still getting FDA regulations. They're still making sure the food is safe for people to eat, but this unnecessary inspection from the agriculture department when it's not an agricultural product just needs to go to streamline things. And on the individual consumer level, if you want to help out, go out, order some catfish off the menu, go to the store, order some locally caught blue catfish. If you're buying farm raised from Louisiana, it doesn't really help the Chesapeake Bay problem. It's not bad, but you can even the most sustainable seafood choice is getting rid of these invasive species out. And they're delicious. Blue catfish are active predators. They're eating. We've seen blue crabs, we've seen striped bass, we've seen ducks in their stomach. So they're eating everything that tastes good to us. So they taste good. Sometimes you may just want to get a little bit of the red meat out, but it cooks just like striped bass does. Just nice white meat, similar to snakehead too. Snakehead's a little bit firmer, but it's a good eating fish. Go out, order some, eat some, get some. You can buy some from Dave maybe, and encourage everybody around you to go out and eat some, because if we create a larger demand, then that'll incentivize more people to go out and catch more of them. And more.
Well, that's a good. I think that's perfect for the guys. But usually this time of year, we're talking end of February, March is pretty cold, and a lot of guys are just waiting for that warm spell. But we've had so many warm spells the last couple of weeks that they are still just killing snakeheads. Where I think this time of the year, the guys that maybe are not catching snakeheads, I'm telling you, man, just a straight up bottom rig with, a worm or even any kind of, I don't know, liver. Dave can tell you all the thing. I mean, just a straight up bottom rig, easiest rig ever, to go out and catch you plenty of blue cats. I mean, you can just have a blast. And let me tell you what, I pulled that 41 pounder in, and that was, it might be pulling in a log, but man, that's still pretty fun no matter what you say.
Yep. To answer this question on if the meat's safe to eat, there's been done some studies on the quality of catfish meat, and basically anything under about 25, 30 pounds, totally safe to eat, unless you're getting them right out of a sewage treatment plant in Potomac or something like that. Like a place where you shouldn't be eating them, like sewage spill, whatever.
Back River.
Exactly. Like you go out, typical river, let's say the Nanticoke where we're studying, Marshy Hope, very clean. And then at the higher level, like 30 pounds plus, they accumulate some toxins over them, bioaccumulation, or basically things that higher up in the food chain. Over time, they accumulate more and more of these toxins that stay in their body. So these larger ones, they're still not that bad compared to other things. And so it's like have these large catfish like you would have tuna. Maybe only have a few of these larger catfish servings a week or a month, whereas focus on eating more of the smaller ones. But those bigger ones, still, you can basically, unless you're pregnant, they're totally fine. Just like salmon or tuna, where you don't want to have that every meal, but several meals a month should be fine.
Here's a good question right there, Noah. Zach.
So if it says wild caught around the Chesapeake Bay, it's totally going to be blue catfish. It's totally going to be Chesapeake Bay wild caught blue catfish. Down in Louisiana, maybe you get a little bit more wild caught, but most catfish outside of the Chesapeake Bay is farmed. So usually they'll say if it's farmed or wild caught. And right now there is like a branding initiative to show that blue catfish. There's like a logo where wild Chesapeake blue catfish. There's a nice little logo on it if you get it at the grocery store. But if you were to get them from a menu, usually a restaurant likes to promote that we have wild caught. Everybody likes to say wild caught because it sounds like it tastes better because it does taste better. Wild caught, locally sourced, sustainable. That's something for people to brag about. It's like we caught it in the back. We caught it right over there, 100 feet from this restaurant. Waterman Dave dropped it off earlier this morning. Super fresh, super quick. Didn't have to fly across the country. So if it's on a menu, they'll usually say if it's locally wild caught catfish, or you can even ask too. I've gone to a restaurant like, is this locally caught? Like, yeah, Chesapeake blue catfish, and they'll tell you.
So doing the so what have you seen mostly? I know when Dave did a couple of videos where he's seen I think it was a lot of herring. It was a lot of herring inside the bellies. I mean, almost every fish that he pulled out had herring in it. And at the video you did, Dave, where you were pulling out a lot of herring out of everyone in a catfish.
Yeah, they were all herring. It was, you had some white perch and a couple bluegills, but I'm going to say 75-80% of the fish during the spawning run was herring in them. And it seems to me they prefer the roe-bearing herring, the female fish. They prefer to eat. It's kind of crazy, but I guess they like the eggs too, caviar.
Yeah, that's some nutrient dense food right there with those fish eggs. Like everything loves fish eggs for that reason. I could definitely see that. But on the circling back once more to the regulatory side here, Noah, Zach, would you be open to maybe crafting the language for something like a change.org petition or something in that same kind of area that we could then circulate around the community? Because I'd be happy to circulate it as well. I just want to make sure that we're capturing exactly what needs to happen so that we have a clear view of the changes that we'd like to see made.
I could work on that sometime a little bit soon. I'm busy pretty slammed for the next couple of weeks. But right now I'm kind of doing some backdoor stuff with some politicians where it's just like I'm feeding them directly the language to use for this. So hopefully they once they figure that out, like what they're going to say, then they'll publicize it and get public feedback. And that's will be the time to get the action.
Good deal.
But Zach, kind of clarifying. So we're talking about what they're eating right now. So Zach, this is exactly Zach's research. So I'll let him kind of
I
summarize what he found.
time in catfish stomachs over the last year. But yeah, no, diet definitely is going to vary seasonally. And like you said, during the migration in the spring, a lot of herring in the stomachs. So we sampled a little over, I think it was almost 1,100 fish over the course of a year. A lot of those in the springtime. And what we saw was, so this is prior to, basically what we're going to do is a genetic analysis, because sometimes you pull a prey item out of the stomach and it's just completely digested and you have no idea what it is. It just looks like white flesh. So what we do is run a genetic analysis on those fish that I can't identify just visually. But so that's we're still awaiting those results. But without that, we'll be seeing up to 10% of the diet in the spring consists of herring. So that's definitely significant. And I think, that may seem like, 10%, so 1 in 10 or whatever. But when you go back to like the video you showed there at the very beginning, there's that dense of a population spread across however many river miles throughout the Chesapeake Bay. 10% of those fish's diets is going to be a really significant amount of herring. We're also seeing, like you said, Dave, a lot of white perch in the stomachs, a lot of gizzard shad, and they also do cannibalize, so they'll eat some smaller catfish. And that's the larger individuals. So the small fish, we're seeing a lot of vegetation, actually. They really love to eat vegetation, particularly, it seems like, in the Nanticoke. A lot of things like detritus or just decaying material from the bottom. And then I think there was a question about clams too. So we have seen a good amount of predation on Asian clams, which are also an invasive species here. I think there's actually a name change that just went through, but we are seeing a lot of predation on those clams, although they're non-native. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see that shift from that more bottom feeding type diet and small fish to, oh, they really start to eat a lot of fish prey above, like 24 inches or so. That's kind of what I've seen so far.
So this is a good idea, because I know you guys just did a thing down around Marshy Hope where you guys had a whole big hoop. I came down to see you guys, but you actually weren't there. You were actually getting ready to head back over. But maybe try to get some local restaurants to come in and have a catfish contest. Who's got the best catfish, and because I know down at Sharptown they got that big pavilion and all that stuff where a lot of the catfish you were catching were down there.
We tried to do that. So last summer, our lab got a grant from the Maryland Department of Natural Resources to basically host a fishing tournament for blue cats and snakeheads, where all the fish caught will be used for my lab's research on invasive species, like basically getting measurements, seeing what's in their stomach, seeing what they're eating, getting tissue samples, all counting how many eggs they've got, all different things like that. And one aspect I wanted to do with that was host a catfish cook-off and see who can make the best recipe and give a prize for that as well. However, there were some complications with getting like a food vendor's permit, where we would have to either there would have to be only a certain judges can taste the food, or basically judges can taste the food, or we'd have to have a catering permit for every single person who's cooking food to share it with other people. And so it's hard to get that permit, but hopefully we'll work with we'll have more time next year to plan it ahead and work with some local food inspectors and health inspectors to figure out a way where we can do an event where maybe it's just the public doesn't get to taste the catfish, but we find out what recipe has the best, what restaurant has the best catfish recipe, or we do something where we find a food truck that wants to volunteer and use their commercial kitchen, because we don't have a commercial kitchen. That's where it happens. That's where the issue was, where they can volunteer and just do a big cookout and share the fish with everybody. Because the more people that try the blue catfish realize, hey, this is pretty good, and then the more they'll want to eat it.
Yeah, I think if you get somebody out there that used to maybe catch a little 3 or 4 pounder catfish, goes out there and starts catching the 10, 15, 20 pound blue cats, that'll hook you real fast. Fast.
I say.
I'll say if you want to get kids into fishing, like one great way to do it is to get them on some blue cats, man. I mean, catfish in general, but you get them out there on the blue cats. It's like, if y'all joined the stream a little bit late, Sam showed a video at the outset that showed giant schools of blue catfish on the Patuxent River. But I mean, I've talked to buddies who are up there on the Susquehanna River who have seen the same thing. Like, you'll see just thousands and thousands and thousands of blue cats out there busting bait on top like rockfish would. It's just insane, the numbers. But yeah, if you want to get kids into fishing, blue cats can be a really great way to do it. And they hit throughout the winter. They hit throughout the winter as good as just about any other fish out there. Great way to pass the winter time too.
Does that come up? There you go. There it is. Let me play it.
Look at those numbers. It's just insane.
It's crazy. If I got to hear one more person tell me how bad that snakeheads are destroying the Chesapeake Bay.
And it's like with blue cats, it's like snakehead like even as someone who loves snakehead, I'll come out and I'll admit that I'm sure they're having a detrimental impact to some degree. But blue cats, you have to keep in mind, they school like this. They proliferate in numbers like no fish I've ever seen. And blue cats, like the biggest snakehead you're going to see is what, 15, maybe 20 pounds?
And that's a good day.
Yeah.
A great day.
Yeah, like blue cats get up to like 100 pounds plus. Like they're a true apex predator. I mean, like Zach was saying earlier, they're finding wood ducks.
Yeah.
In the stomachs of these larger catfish, like and they're opportunistic feeders who are omnivorous. So vegetation, crustaceans, fish, terrestrial mammals, like amphibians. Like I don't care what it is.
They're going to eat it.
It's like for a long time, I didn't realize how shallow blue cats go to feed until I started seeing the pictures from the bow fishing boats where they're just out there destroying these blue cats. So it's like they'll be in everything from the deep water column where guys are catching them trying to troll for rockfish, all the way up into the shallow waters. So it's like they occupy all of those areas. It's insane.
Yeah, I think
it's really insane.
Exactly. Yeah. From like a habitat standpoint, I think it's crazy because, like you said, the snakeheads will be kind of just confined to those more headwater regions where they're kind of swampy and, not a whole lot going on there otherwise. But I mean, the blue cats, will see them all the way down into saltwater, all the way up into freshwater and everywhere in between. It's like just the sheer amount of habitat they occupy, just that much more potential for them to run into stuff that's important in the bay, crabs and all the fish that we found, like you said, the wood ducks. It's pretty indiscriminate and it's impressive, if not a little scary, what they'll eat and how much of it they'll eat.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing, right? It's like at the end of the day, we kind of have to like give some grudging respect or like give a tip of the hat to these fish because the reason they do so incredibly well is because they're so well evolved to occupy so many different types of environments out there. And it's like, if you're willing to eat anything, the odds of you starving are pretty low, man. It's just incredible how adaptable they are. It's
they're the perfect example of a generalist, meaning
yeah,
they don't have a specific thing they feed on, a specific part of the water. They can run shallow, deep, mid-water column. They eat everything, nothing more specifically than anything else. Just rather than whatever they can get their mouths around easiest, they'll eat it, and they can also survive in a wide range of conditions, making them just kind of like the ultimate generalist, similar to carp, except that these even eat more different things than carp.
Yeah, they say carp's a big deal here too in the waters, but because when I was with the Dan River boys, we were up at the Susquehanna, and the catfish in there that we were filleting had nothing but clams in it. So, they were definitely eating clams up there. And I do want to say I am drinking one beer. I haven't really drank a lot, but I am drinking a beer. This right here is a barrel-aged beer, 11% alcohol. It tastes like French toast, but it has a little whiskey taste. And the reason I'm doing is tomorrow is a big day for me. I am getting knee surgery tomorrow. I'm up late. The surgery is tomorrow. I'm actually having a total knee replacement done tomorrow. But I get 3 months off. I'll be ready for spring to hit, and then I will be having so much fishing content. So real quick, Cambo Trout, his YouTube channel is Cambo Trout Fishing. He does a lot of, really, if you are into snakeheads, even catfish, he catches it all. Now, don't get me wrong. Most of his content gears towards snakehead, how to catch them, when to catch them, everything, anything you want to know about, snakeheads, you can definitely find it on the channel. But he's out blue catfishing. He's out yellow perch, white perch. Whatever he can catch that day, it doesn't matter as long as he's catching something. David Confair, he has one. He only posts a little bit. That is baby corn. Just baby corn, right?
Baby corn, official. Yeah.
Baby corn official. This guy can, this guy can catch freaking, you go and you can sit on a transquake and then he'll catch a bucket full of crappie or a bucket full of bluegill while everybody's sitting around. How in the hell is he doing that? That's how good of a fisherman he is. Other than that, I just want to talk about my knee surgery since I'm going to be limping around for a little while, and I got my beautiful wife here. Is going to be taking care of me. She's so excited. She's just so damn excited. All right, so when I could just tell you, I'm going to tell you my opinion. You know, when the snakehead and we heard all this debate about snakeheads and everything, because being a bass fisherman, it's last couple of months, I said this before that I just didn't realize. I mean, because snakeheads don't school up. I mean, don't get me wrong, you're going to get an area. And like I said, in the Blackwater, Stephen has said this many times, in Blackwater, where you have such a small, short depth where, snakeheads can really, really thrive in that area. I can understand where they can control, but with all the pressure that's been down there, I think that the people that's actually have taken some out has controlled the population down there. I've seen a lot of smaller bass, and I've seen everything down there. I've seen snakeheads sitting right next to it.
Right now in the Blackwater, the blue cats are definitely controlling the snakehead population. I have caught over 40 or 50 blue cats out of the Blackwater and the Transquake just this winter that have all spit up snakeheads. And you wouldn't believe a 10-pound blue cat is spitting up a 3 or 4 pound snakehead. Oh, it's unbelievable. I'd say they're literally wiping the snakeheads out of the Transquake.
I can imagine a snakehead just kind of standing its ground while just the catfish just envelops it instead of running away.
Well, see, the blue cats are more active in the winter, and the snakeheads are laying dormant on bottom.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's just a treat for them. It's like a snack.
That's true.
And it's like there was a time where, before I realized how shallow blue cats go and how often they go shallow, that, I had caught blue cats in the Blackwater area, be it, the Chickamacomico, the Transquaking, or Blackwater proper, that I wasn't sure exactly how much impact those blue cats would have. But with how shallow they can go, like, I'm not surprised to hear you say that, Dave. I'm really not.
Yeah, they've been numbers in the lower. Well, I've been all the way. I've had my boat about a mile from the Coursey Bridge, and the blue cats were so thick you caught them up with the prop.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're fishing, you're looking back, and there's catfish flipping on top of the water. And that's, it's a lot when they're like that.
I was fishing over.
I'm really surprised how fast the blue cats have taken over the Transquaking and the Chickamacomico and the Blackwater River. And I mean, they're all the way down to Fishing Bay. I just fished the Transquaking 2 days ago, and they were probably 20 foot thick for a mile long at the mouth of the river. All blue cats. Everywhere.
Good grief.
Yeah, it's
I think, like, as their populations continue to expand, I mean, especially on the Eastern Shore where they were introduced more recently than over on the western side of the bay, I think you're going to see those populations expand, like you said, all the way up further and further, just to free themselves from competition, right? Because if you've got a lot of blue cats down in Vienna, some of them are going to want to go upstream and find better habitat with more resources. And, that trend will likely continue as they push their way up into just about any and everywhere. I mean, they can tolerate pretty high salinity and they can go full fresh water, no problem, and shallow, like you said. So they're just so capable. It's crazy.
So Zach, so when we're talking about spawning and we're talking about reproducing and everything, have you come up about, snakeheads? I don't know if we come up with, if you guys have come up with a distinctive way. Everybody says they spawn 3 to 5 times a year. Is it is it the same fish? Is it different fish at different times? Or how about the blue cat? Are they like bass where they maybe spawn once a year?
So as far as I know, on blue cats, once a year spawn, and that's going to be, I believe we saw it was about June, July this year. And it was interesting because we actually didn't find anything in the stomachs for that time frame, which I talked to some people that had done some diet research in the past, and they're like, when they spawn, you're not going to find, they don't eat, so that's kind of frustrating. It doesn't mean much when I open up the stomach and there's nothing in it. So that was interesting. As far as the snakehead, the snakehead goes, we did see some interesting research at a conference lately. I'll let Noah explain in terms of the potential multiple spawns in a year.
Sure, yeah. So a good colleague of mine is doing some research and showing that it seems preliminary evidence is confirming that they may do 2 spawns a year. Now they may, so those 2 spawns are not all going to happen all at once, like in April and in November or October. It's not going to be like clear cut. So each one's kind of overlap, like it has a wider range, and that'll make it seem like they're spawning a bunch of different times. But in reality, each one may be spawning twice. And some evidence for them being spawning twice is some of these snakeheads had eggs at 2 different stages of development, suggesting that they're working on 2 different batches of eggs. And so I don't think that they're going to be getting up to 5 times or anything. I think 2 is probably the high end. 2 is probably the maximum they're doing. But spreading it out over, having some spawning for a couple months, throughout a couple months in the spring and then a couple months in the fall, covers a wide range. And so it shows that they have a good capacity to put out a lot of offspring.
Man, I just can't get over it. How, going with Dave was one thing, and really starting to pay attention to the blue cats. I mean, when we talk about destruction of the bay, I mean, man, if you cannot see with your eyes the devastating, the really, like I said, we were just talking to somebody, I think it was from, I was talking to some guys earlier this morning that a lot of them are catfishermen from down south, and they're not invasive down there. It's amazing to me how in some areas the blue cats aren't invasive, and our rockfish are invasive in some. We want a rockfish. Some people don't want the rockfish, and it's just amazing in the same, in North America, how in certain, I guess it's just depending on your ecosystem, I guess, you know what I mean? Is that basically it?
Yeah. Keep fish where they're native to. Like, sure. Striped bass on the, here, part native ecosystem, everything's in balance. It works out great. Everything's happy. On the West Coast, it's problematic. It can eat recovering salmon that are struggling, recovering steelhead that are struggling. And so there, it's not part of the natural balance there, and it can disrupt the native food web. Similarly, in Louisiana, blue catfish are part of the population, the native species there, and people there are complaining like, oh, there's not a ton of these giant ones like we're getting in the marshy hope, because they're integrated. They have predators controlling them, like gators and whatnot, and they're in a balanced ecosystem. Whereas here, it's unbalanced, and so basically don't transport fish around. If you have a fish that gets too big for your fish tank, bring it to a pet store, give it to them, give it to me. Don't put any fish in the backyard, whether it's a goldfish, a snakehead, catfish, carp, anything. I've caught an Amazon red-tailed catfish in New York growing up that was somebody must have released as a pet, along with some other weird things. Like you go down to Florida, you can see everything. They even got like arapaima there. They've got clown knife fish. They got all sorts of weird things, and you wonder why there's not much of a native fishery, freshwater fishery in Florida. It's because we don't even know what is native anymore, because all these little species that are like these endemic meaning that they're only found in a certain small region and they're native to that region. You put something big in there that eats all those things, then those endemics that we haven't described yet go away and get eaten, and we're losing an ecosystem that we may not even know to the full extent exists.
Well, I can tell you what, I don't want no freaking alligators up here. To keep them the hell down south.
We had them in New York too. While I was fishing, we saw one in New York too. That was somebody's pet probably got too big. They put them outside, and they ended up. We called the natural resources people, and they caught it and brought it to the Bronx Zoo. So I don't think gators would be able to survive that much right here. But they can survive in North Carolina, and they could survive light freezes where, as long as the water doesn't freeze all the way deep, they freeze with their nose right at the surface. So their nose is over the ice, and they can breathe air through the surface while frozen under. And here it's a little too cold for that, but with enough temperature warms a little bit more, maybe we'll have gators here naturally moving up.
There you go, Sam. We'll get some gators for you, bud.
I'm telling you, man, you go down Florida, like I'm like, I watch them sit there walking around, and they go out there and they're like oystering and clamming, and I'm thinking, I watched Christine. She's a bass fisher, kayak bass fisherman. Christine, the blonde. She's really good. She's a kayak fisher. I watched her YouTube channel, and it was funny. She had a power drive on her kayak, and she was fishing, and out of nowhere, this gator came up and literally was chasing her down. And thank God she had that power drive to actually power her out of there. And I'm thinking, she's down in Florida right now. She was fishing, and she starts going down this. You know how they have them real skinny ways like Okeechobee and stuff. She's going down there, and all of a sudden, this big 10-foot alligator jumps in front of her. I'm like, I ain't freaking out of there. I'm not even going. I'm not fishing where there's alligators, man. That's I'm on a boat. I am not
when
going
I
to.
was young. I think
I
was like 9 or 10, and my family went on a vacation to like Hilton Head, South Carolina, and they're all going golfing. And I'm like, I don't care about golfing. I'm just gonna go fishing in the golf course pond. And I was still learning fishing. I was kind of self-taught, and so luckily the restaurant next to the golf course pond is like, oh, here you could have some of these fried shrimp to use as bait. And I was catching a little like tarpon, a little ladyfish, a little drum, and things like that. And I'm like, I see this like piece of bait get pushed up to the surface like 5 feet away from me, right at the shore. I'm like, oh, that's weird. And I see it keep coming further, and there's a gator holding my fried shrimp in its mouth 5 feet away from me. And I'm like, okay, I'm done fishing for the day.
Yeah. Screw that, dude. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I don't. I think the worst thing in it. I think the worst we got to worry about. I don't. We got maybe 100-pound catfish sucking you under. But other than that, I mean, I don't know. I think you guys go ahead. I'm still just kind of.
Well,
there it is, Chris.
I'll say I got a quick question for Zach and Noah, if you don't mind, Sam.
Oh, dude, go ahead. That's why we're here.
So I know that y'all are waiting right now on some of the kind of higher level genetic testing for those results to come back. But like as far as the blue cat research in general, where do you see the research going in the future? Are we going to be looking at kind of like community assessment surveys? Are we going to be looking at more kind of telemetry studies to track their movement? Like, what do you think the next step is to kind of look at blue cat research and, the way forward for controlling?
Yeah, so there is a little bit of a kind of a push to look at some movement stuff. I think it's all been on the Patuxent. They did like kind of a small pilot study that looked at movement on the Nanticoke years ago, but it was really, really small. So I think that there's certainly an avenue there, because I don't really think we totally know, broadly how much these fish are moving in a given season. So I think there's definitely that's a possible avenue. I think figuring out a way, or really a methodology, to kind of assess precisely what impacts they're having on the fish or the organisms that they're consuming, whatever that is, because a diet study like ours, while it's informative, you still basically, to kind of quantify or like put an exact number on what impacts they're having, you have to be able to estimate how much they're eating in a given day. You have to be able to estimate how large not only the population of catfish is, but also the population of potentially the prey species is. So that's kind of been my thing, is definitely shedding some light on the fact that these fish are consuming a lot of things that are important. And without having monitoring efforts in place for these species that they're consuming, we really don't have any idea. There's no baseline. We don't know how much things are changing. So I think that's certainly an important way forward. And then I guess the idea of commercial electrofishing and kind of assessing what impact that has, or potentially negative, I guess, consequences of using commercial electrofishing, whether that's, are they, accidentally killing a bunch of other fish besides catfish, and maybe, yeah, some more studies on that, and then seeing how applicable could that be up in Maryland, and how do we get more people on board with that, and then, gosh, improving, like we've talked about with the accessibility in the commercial market, using them as fertilizer. I mean, there's like so many just possible avenues, and it's unfortunate that like budgets are small, because there's only but so much work that can be done between these government agencies, so
Yeah,
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see where it goes for sure.
That's
gonna be a
definitely what I'm
crazy
worried
saga.
about, because we have so many other issues that are going on, in the human sphere, that when it comes time, like, hey, we could really use some money to control blue catfish. If the history is any guide, we as humans tend to not deal with an issue until we have no choice but to deal with that issue. So I feel like we're going to get to a point where, unfortunately, the blue cats are going to have a really big impact until we can't avoid it anymore. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can see that y'all have a lot of work to do. And as always, I like to thank our fisheries biologists out there for the research y'all are doing.
Yeah.
And, it's I appreciate y'all taking the time tonight to speak with all of us and kind of share your results. It's, God, I wish I had a good answer for everybody out there about a direction to point everybody in. I know it's like in the fishing community, we tend to be kind of conservative in terms of our ideology, right? I think I'm stating a kind of a basic fact there. So I know that a lot of times we as fishermen aren't inclined to look to government as a solution for anything. That's just not, it doesn't fit our kind of perspective. But the bottom line is, if we want to manage our fisheries effectively, we have to start connecting fishermen with fisheries biologists and fisheries scientists, and then, implement that policy, whether that's in personal action or whether it's in the legislative sphere. But, it's either way, that's a connection we have to make if we want to work constructively.
That's
a good
why
idea.
Zach and I are here. We're trying to help bridge that gap and just trying to connect the science with the people as much as possible, so there's as much transparency as possible. But kind of going on that front, you imagine there's only so much budget that we have for so many different fisheries projects. But you can contact your local politicians and legislators and say that the fisheries are really important and we need more funds for fisheries. And you can even say specifically, we need to fund blue catfish research. That's also one of the things that I'm working on discussing with legislatures and getting more funding for blue catfish research. I may be a little bit biased because some of that funds may come to me, but I'm trying to. We're trying to help figure out how to help solve this catfish problem. So go out and tell your legislators to give me more money.
And we thought we were going to talk about them evil snakeheads tonight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
We can talk a little about that.
Well, the last couple streams we've been about an hour and a half. I mean, we could probably get about another 15 minutes. I mean, it's getting late. Well, I don't know. For me, it always seems late after 6 o'clock. But Dave is on the water every day, and I see every day how when we talk about going to legislative and stuff like that, how every time they start to get ahead, it seems like politics come in to kind of knock them back a couple pegs. They're just out there trying to make a living, and they're trying to. A lot of people complain about over harvesting and stuff, and I mean, I would think for most of the commercial guys, especially, I've been around, with Rachel. I've been out with her a lot and talking a lot of guys. I mean, these guys know how. I think these guys know more than what these people in the offices know. For the most part. I mean, they see it every day. They know how to. I don't know. It's tough for me to see a guy like Dave out there day in, day out, busting out, and every time he turns around, he keeps shaking his head like, "Well, we can't do this, or we got to do that," or you know what I mean, Dave?
Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. They try to take as much as they can sometimes, but it's just like all the aquaculture oysters. I don't care what anybody says. Cage-raised oysters aren't as good as the ones you catch on the bottom that are wild. I've ate them over and over and over, and it's just they try to farm them, and I don't know. They turn out snappy, poor. They ain't like the ones that grow on the bottom, and it's the same with the farm-raised fish. They ain't as healthy for you. They feed them all kind of antibiotics in the ponds and all that to keep them alive in them big schools and numbers, and they say that stuff's more cancer causing than the wild caught fish. So.
Well, talking, with Rachel being out there and asking her questions, they're saying there's actually, so So out there, they're saying they actually closed off another river for them that they can't go. You have three different kind of oysters. You got the dredgers, you got the pat tongers, and then you got the hand tongers that actually, hand tong. They mostly set up for each one. So she's telling me there's places out there that are actually just overwhelmed with shell. If they would just let them clean these areas off, kind of clean all the soot, clean all the areas off to where they can actually get them. So what a lot of people don't realize, when you get your oysters, if you can actually keep them and put them back into the bay, they will actually reproduce. But what happens is that when they get them and they whatever they do, they actually sell the shells to other states. They're actually selling the oyster shells to other states instead of actually bringing them back and keeping them here. And she's telling me that the oysters actually have the money to buy the shells so they can put the shells back. You'll have to wait for the video because I can't remember what she said. Because we actually had a talk here during the video. I got a video coming out about it, about how that seem like she's worried about next year they might not be able to oyster. She's worrying about next year, where they're more they're trying to the guys doing the oyster farming, is getting more of the they want you to pay for a piece of property on the Chesapeake Bay, so you can harvest oysters instead of actually doing what they've been doing for generations and generations. Oysters filter the bay. If you keep taking the shells out and not actually bringing, letting them grow back, it's sometimes I'm not the smartest guy let me tell you, I'm not the smartest guy, but I'm not that freaking stupid either to know that if you let guys that have been doing it for 100 years, let them tell you how, we can control this. We can do this if you work with us. But it just seems like they don't want to work with anybody.
Well, a big problem with the oysters, the wild oysters in the Chesapeake Bay is the wild population is down to about 1% of what the historical population was. Yeah. And so if you were to do the same things that you were to do 100 years ago, there's just not enough oysters to do that again. And so I think a lot of the effort encouraging farmed oysters it's more of a short-term solution to allow the oysters to regrow in the bay and get to a level where we can do what we're doing 100 years ago, where there is enough of the oysters. And it wasn't just over like harvesting oysters. It was things like people dredging the waters, which would destroy the oyster bars, or anchors dragging through oyster bars, and all these different things that ruin the oyster habitat. And so sure, there's just not enough oysters left to wild caught. Farming them in the short term can at least
provide ecosystem. See, that's
benefit.
That's where you might disagree, because I think there is enough oysters in the Chesapeake Bay that we can keep replenish them. If there's certain areas that are just dead, if they would let them actually go in and get all the soot and everything out of there to actually clean areas off, to actually let what's underneath grow, they could do that. If they actually keep the shells here instead of selling the shells and actually putting them in areas, they want to put cinder blocks out there. She telling me that they actually want to put cinder blocks out in the bay, and they're like, well, what is cinder blocks going to do? I mean, we don't want cinder blocks out there. We want actually to put our freaking oyster shells back out there to actually grow. Go ahead, Dave.
I also know the Nanticoke River. I fished down there, and when we fished nets down there just in the previous years, it's a closed river. It's a sanctuary. In our nets, the live oysters that were coming up were unbelievable. I mean, bushels among bushels among bushels. All the live oysters you ever wanted to see. Just this year, the state went in and buried them all under rock and gravel. They're going to make their own reef, and they covered all the live oysters over that were down there. I mean,
they don't want it. They don't want it. They don't want the bricks there. I mean, why would you put cinder blocks in the Chesapeake Bay? I mean, I know that they do that in the ocean. I know there's a reef foundation when they go out of Ocean City. They put bricks out there to help with the reefs and everything to kind of get stuff to grow. But supposedly the oysters, they don't even hook. Do they even hook to the cinder blocks?
Yeah. So I mean, oysters just need any hard, rock-like substrate, which could be other shells or cinder blocks. I mean, I don't recommend putting cinder blocks on top of existing oyster reefs, but they could be used to help recolonize areas that, or let's say just mud that don't have oysters, because they need something hard to attach to.
Mm-hmm. I know they did it to the little chop tank too. They brung all that riprap and fossilized oyster shells out of Florida that they trucked up from train and bring barges and barges and barges and barges. And the Little Chop Tank was the most productive river on the eastern shore for oysters at the time. And they went in there and covered acres and acres of live oysters over under thousands and thousands of tons of boulders. And then they went back in and seeded it with their own oysters. I don't know. Me, if they want to make a reef or a bar, then they go somewhere where there ain't one and make a new one. Show me how to make it instead of covering old ones over and trying to make their new ones. I don't know.
Yeah, see, that's where the politics always come in. You know, it's like, you know, the oyster, you know, the commercial one like Dave will tell you, say, hey man, we know what's in this area. If you just leave us alone, you know, we can have plenty of oysters in this. You know, we can have plenty of oysters. They won't run out of oysters. But you know, so this is another topic we can bring up. I mean, if anybody likes the live stream that we're doing, you know, we can always do different kind of topics. I'm going to be laid up. I'm not going to be laid up because I'm not sitting around. My big fat butt's got to be up walking around. Because you know, a knee surgery, you can't be sitting around. You actually got to be up and moving around. But you know, that's another topic that I think would be pretty cool with the fishery biologist, with you, Noah. Well, what I'm going to do, we've been doing this for about an hour and 15 minutes. It's getting kind of late. If there's any questions real quick that anybody wants to pop up, just ask real quick. And then if not, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go. I cannot thank you enough for all you guys taking the time out today to come up and, you know, indulge me with, you know, because I know you guys have been doing it. And if nobody's listening, then, you know, if we can't tell anybody, there ain't no sense of doing it if you're not going to do the research. So talking about it is always a great thing. I think this has been a pretty awesome discussion. You know, I've actually learned a lot. Being able to go out on commercial, you know, whether it's crabbing or commercial oystering, you know, I get to listen and learn a lot of stuff. You know, it's kind of fun. The first time we went out, we ended up coming back because we were only in about 5-foot waves out there. that video. Wait for the video. That should be fun. Coming back with felt like the SS Minnow, you know. 3-hour tour kind of thing coming back that was the longest ride. I can tell you what, man, that right out there between Deal Island and Chrisfield, man, that in a bay, that could be some rough. That can get rough real quick.
I don't do waves like that anymore, man. I don't know what happened. I turned 30 and my stomach was like, no.
Last time I was at Deal Island, I thought I was like, oh, let me go. I think I can make it with the wind. And I was just in the island. It was fine. And then I was like, oh yeah, there's 45-mile-per-hour gusts today. I had to keep bailing water out of my kayak. Luckily, I had a motor on so I could have it going while I'm bailing it out. But I caught like 8 stripers that day that were keeper size. Let them all go, but I was like, hey, I survived barely, but good fishing, so I would do it again.
Good deal.
So
if you're still catching fish, the big waves are okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we could suffer almost drowning. Why not? Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, so it's, you know, being out there, I really sit down there and listen to Dave a lot and realize, you know, the commercial guys really just, it seems like it just gets, I don't know, a DNR, man, I ain't never in my life hear some of the stuff. The DNR is tough on these guys, man. You know, there's certain areas, and let me tell you what, you crossing, you know, if you're oystering, they actually have everything kind of boxed off. You got to be in a certain area. Man, if you cross over into that area, DNR is, they're like right on you, like ask you, what are you doing? You know, I mean, if you're oystering, you know, you got to have what's in your things. If you actually have shells on the floor or if you got any extra on the floor or anything, man, they'll give you a ticket and all that kind of stuff. I mean, man, DNR does not mess with the commercial guys. It is like, seriously. I feel for you, Dave. I do.
So
they can be tough on you.
I was going to say, from my perspective, I just want to say thanks, you know, to everybody on here, Dave, for the insight about the blue cats kind of infiltrating the trans-quaking in the Blackwater area. It's like I knew it was happening, but, you know, not being a waterman, I haven't, you know, been catching those blue cats and, you know, looking at stomach contents and seeing all the snakehead in there. You know, once upon a time, it would have surprised me. Now it doesn't, but I really appreciate you sharing your perspective. And then, you know, Zach and Noah for everything that you guys do out there day in, day out, because, you know, it's people who haven't really dug into what goes into fishery science and the methodology that y'all have to come up with. And, you know, you're on the water, and when you're not on the water, you're at home crunching numbers and reviewing the data and working towards publication and doing all the writing and coordinating. And it's a lot. And so just, you know, and Sam, thanks for bringing us all together, man. I appreciate it.
Well, this is good. That's why, you know, I'm lucky that I get to know, you know, Zach and Noah, because, you know, this was kind of coincidental, but, you know, these guys have a lot of information. And when it comes to the Chesapeake Bay that I fish a lot, and you're hearing everybody talking about how the snakeheads are killing everything, the catfish are killing everything. We don't have no rockfish. The crab population's gone. You know, the oysters, we don't, you know, so you're listening to everybody. It's all Debbie Downers most of the time is what I'm hearing lately. And, you know, we just want to make sure that we go out. And I think with all that stuff that we've been talking about tonight, I think one of the main issues and one of the biggest issues is the freaking pollution in the Chesapeake Bay. That's, to me, I think, from the Conowingo Dam. I mean, when we talk about like Back River, where I grew up, I mean, it is just the pollution. I mean, sometimes it's scary. As much crabs that we get and eat, you know, it's kind of, you know, I'm very careful on how much I eat and when I eat and stuff like that. I mean, you really got to watch out that. I mean, you go and you cut yourself, you touch the water, you could get a freaking parasite to eat your freaking arm away if you're not careful. So it's just,
the good news is that the Chesapeake Bay used to be a lot worse. It's on the up and up. It's the water quality is getting better. There's still some issues to be worked on, like the Conowingo Dam. But compared to like 50 years ago, like in the 70s, when it was so dead, they were like, hey, maybe we should put blue catfish in here because they can survive anything. And since then, things have been recovering. Water quality is getting better. There's still a lot of room for improvement, but at least water quality wise, we're heading in the right direction.
That was the smoothest thing I've ever heard. Did he just slip that in there? Like, man,
it wasn't Maryland put it in there. It was Virginia. Let's throw Virginia under the bus. Virginia put it in. Like, they're not going to spread across the bay. But we didn't really know much about 50 years ago. We didn't know much about invasive species compared to what we know today, and now we would know to never do anything like that.
Right. That was pretty funny. I'm going to remember that one. You clean up the bay. The thing about that, you clean up the bay and you do all this work, and then one big giant hurricane comes through. They open up every gate on the Susquehanna River, the Conowingo Dam, and then you get every nasty thing from that's sitting on the other side of Conowingo Dam that just can. I mean, you've seen how it got all milky that one day. I mean, completely destroyed the razor clam. Razor clams are so expensive right now. I mean, what are you going to pay? $80, $90 a bushel of razor clams if you buy them?
$20 probably, yeah.
Jeebus.
Yeah, so I mean, you got to think of it. I can fill a bucket up. When I used to get razor clams, I get them locally from a guy I used to go all the time. I can fill a 5-gallon bucket up with razor clams for $20, you know? And now you got to pay, you know, that's got to be double, you know? So that completely almost ruined the razor clam thing. And that's another, you know, that's just so many issues with that. But guys, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let you go. I gotta get prepared for tomorrow. No more eating, no more drinking. That's my last drink for tonight. You know, I gotta get up kind of early to go and get this thing done, but I'll be ready come spring. I really wish if I'll go down to Johnson's Pond. I'd love to hang with you, Noah, for one day. Bring the boat down, just do whatever.
Sounds good. I've been slaying the pickerel lately.
Yeah,
Dave.
I mean, I haven't. Nobody come to Johnson Pond taking my pickerel.
Dave, I try to get out with Dave. I don't know. It's like I got COVID or something. I don't know. Dave,
I ain't had nobody much this year. I've been leave in the middle of the night. We'll get you out. What you need.
Yeah, I can go. Hey, I'll be all right. Steve, I'd love to get out with you whether you want to get on a boat or something. You know, we haven't fished in a while. We haven't fished in a while, but I am really going to hit fishing next year, probably harder than I have in a lot. Last year, I think I slacked off big time. But before I got my better half nagging me back on crabbing every other day. Other than that, we're going to go. So Zach, I know you're in California. I hope you have a absolute. I hope your career does really good, man. I appreciate you coming on and giving us information. That's really awesome. Noah, everybody.
sure,
I really
yeah.
appreciate you coming on. If I got something cool that maybe we could talk about, I'll see if you guys want to come on again. This has been actually really. We had like 60 people in here at one point. That was pretty cool. We had a lot of people come in. I really kind of promoted a little bit on other channels, Catfish channels and stuff. We still have 26 people in here right now, but we had 60 people in here talking about what we did. So I'm going to end the stream. Please, everybody, thank you very much. And check out Kambou Trout's YouTube channel, Kambou Trout Fishing. And please subscribe to my channel. I got plenty of stuff coming up, even though I'm not going to be out for a little bit. All right. So thanks for everybody coming. And thank you guys. I appreciate it a lot.
Thanks for having
All
us.
What we're
Appreciate
doing,
it.
follow Noah at Noah with Fish on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. I'm on all that. Facebook. I'm sharing all the fish facts, and we'll try to get a live stream going for Zach's defense in April, where we'll have if Zach's cool with it, where the public can see all this new research in the finale of his study. We'll share that.
Yeah, I'll put your
results, all the data.
when this is all over, I'll have all your links in the description. I'll put all your links in the description underneath. That way you can, anybody wants to check you guys out, whether you're doing and everything. And like the video you and Dave did, I'll have that all underneath. Okay.
Thanks.
Good.
All right.
Best luck with
Good
the
luck with
surgery,
surgery.
Nice.
All right, man. See you guys. Just call me Hoppy.
brother.
Tomorrow, Sam.
All right. See